Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm Linda Joy, your host. I am so excited that you have circled up with me once again. Are you ready to discover how to go from stuck to thriving in any area of your life? I think we've all can relate and have been there at one or more times in our lives where we just can't find a way to transform a habit, break through a block. Well, today we're going to be talking about a holistic approach, but holistic with the word W in front of it. And we're going to be talking about strategies for transforming stress into a source of strength. And my special guest will be sharing the stop, change, shift technique to help you increase your resilience and personal empowerment. Karen Rudolf is a transformative life strategist, super stress reducer, and four-time international best-selling author. As the founder of Tranquil SOULutions, she's dedicated to empowering personal and professional growth with a holistic approach. With a rich background in nursing, comprehensive certifications and licenses, Karen specializes in enhancing communication, boosting self-esteem, and fostering holistic well-being, thereby decreasing stress. Her work not only shifts perceptions, but also nurtures resilience and peace, making her a trusted guide in life's journey. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you so much, Linda. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, let's start right at the beginning because when they're viewing and listening to the show, they're going to say, why is there a W in front of holistic? And I know that there's a deep meaning there for you. So let's start with that. What does that W represent to you?
Oh, I'm so grateful you asked because so many people skip over that. So when I work with clients, I've educated myself in the mental, the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual. So the whole is right. We're not just a single unit. We are whole, complete people, individuals. I should add into that. I'd like to add into that. And so when I look at people in general, I look at them from every aspect, not just what ails them in the moment.
I love that. And I love like holistic. And I wrote it down actually as the word whole-istic because that is really what it is. And as someone that used to struggle being in balance between the three, I've always been 30 years taking care of my emotional, spiritual health, but I haven't always been the greatest taking care of the physical. So
Right.
when I started to make sure I was incorporating practices for all three, I'll tell you, it really shifts your life, as you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what inspired your own journey to this work? Because I believe that just about every person on my show over the last 8 years, I've noticed a thread, Karen, and that thread is their own mess turned into their message. I know that's true for me. Is that true for you?
Absolutely. And it's so interesting you say that because I ask the same kind of question because there is a thread. We're all connected. Carl Jung talks about the golden thread of connection, and I really believe that we are connected. So my journey began, I always say 5 years old. That's when I remember. Could have been 6, could have been 7, but I remember I'm thinking it's more like 5 when I was a very curious child. And I used to ask a lot of questions. And my dad would say to me, go away, go play. You ask too many questions. Go, you know. So the subliminal message that I got was were to be seen, not heard. And it was like, oh, what I have to say isn't important enough. And that sort of made me feel like I'm not enough. So fast forward into my career in nursing, I um I started discharging patients, and the doctors would say, "Send them home with it." And I'd look at the scripts, and Linda, I would say to them, like, "You're sending them home with a prescription, but you're masking the symptoms. You're not getting to the root cause if they're ails. Oh, just you do your job and, send them home and don't worry about it." And I kept getting that over and over again. And at the time, I was about to get married. We moved down to Florida, and my former husband said to me, "You're going to stay home with the kids and raise the kids." My mother did, and so are you. And I was like, "Whoa, okay. What about my career?" And, "Oh, don't worry about it. Kind of thing." So I always felt squelched from early on. I never had that feeling of empowerment because I kept giving my power away as a people pleaser, and somebody who's not enough wants to be enough. So we tend to go to the opposite extreme, not knowing what I didn't know back then. So when divorce hit, it hit unexpectedly. I thought when I got married, it was for life. I was one of those kind of people. And I had, as I said, given my power away. I hid behind my children, and it was like, what's next? People kept saying, "What are you going to do?" And right around the time when I was attempting to figure out who Karen is, I always look from a place of positivity. I never looked from my weaknesses. I always looked at strengths. And being a mind mapper, I was doing that for my daughter who was challenged with her learning. She was a visual, I'm a visual, and I started mapping everything. It was my life plan was in a map, so uh, um, during that time, as I was mapping and seeing my strengths, it was like, okay, what can I build with this? What can I build with this? I've always, from early childhood, always played with manipulative puzzles. So fast forward into life, I became a creative problem solver. So for me, everything I do today is around creativity and creative problem solving, thus the holistic, because now I'm approaching that from a creative aspect of looking outside the box and realizing there aren't any boxes. It's only the constraints we put on ourselves. So when I was going through my divorce, I had two horses, and my horse, I live in Florida, which is the lightning capital of the world, and I always thought, oh, this will never happen to me. Not me. Of course, it happened not just once, but it happened twice. And during that time, I was looking outside of myself for something to find answers. So I studied world religion. And in the space of world religion, I had taken on a mentor. I've invested an incredible amount of money into and time and energy into myself. And when my second horse got struck by lightning, my spiritual mentor said to me, uh, "Aren't you curious what lightning means?" And I said, "No, I'm intuitive. I already know what it means, and I don't want to be responsible for it." She sort of chuckled and said, "Okay, well, when you're ready, you let me know." And I went, "Okay." So when the spiritual meaning of lightning is all about, excuse me, being a light worker and being a messenger in the world. And since I committed to do that, I haven't looked back, and I've always stepped into my power from that moment moving forward. And right around that time, my mom got sick, and she started slurring her words. So I dropped everything, and I rushed to go see what was happening in her world. She was 2.5 hours away. So I've got the divorce, I've got the horse, and now I've got my mom, and life was really coming at me fast and furious. And I got to my mom's place, and I found her on the floor. And when I looked at my mother curled up in a fetal position, I didn't see my mother. I saw somebody who wanted to be loved and heard and was overwhelmed and just didn't know how to get her act together. She was on 19 medications, and it was all a result of wanting to be noticed. She was 70 years old and had taken art classes, and she had no one to show them to. She was lonely. And so she would call up the doctor's office and say, I have a migraine, and they would say, come on in, and she would have her artwork under her shoulder, under her arm, and they would ooh and ah, and then a week or two later, she'd do another piece of art, and she'd say, well, the medication you gave me now made me nauseous. Well, come on in and we'll take care of that. And it became a habit to the point where she was on 19 medications. And I declared in that moment, the buck stops here, not on my watch. And I've been on that mission ever since.
That's powerful. I believe as for myself that, looking back on my journey, I'm like, that's why I had to experience that
Well,
pain, darkness, struggle, because this is the work I'm meant to do in the world. And now it's all integrated for me, as it sounds like it is for you. So one of the things that I see in a lot of your messaging is transforming stress, right? Because I'll got to tell you, we're more stressed than ever, especially if you're not on the path of self-discovery, right? If you're not always opening to new tools and possibilities, it almost becomes wired into us that we come to believe that's the normal way of being. And you and I know it's not the normal way of being. Stress is almost, it's a choice made for myself, I'll speak for myself. I used to always be in overwhelm and stress
right,
because I thought things had to be a certain way. So of course I would try to micromanage the divine, which caused my stress, not the circumstances. It
right.
was me trying to control the circumstances. So what's a strategy? We have a few minutes before our first break, but what's one strategy that can support listeners to transform their stress?
Well, first and foremost, don't be attached to it. It's not part of your identity. It doesn't define who you are. And one of the things I like to I give my clients when they sign up with me a dog leash. And I say, Karen, like, why are you giving me a dog leash? I don't get it. And they said, who's going to control who? When you're walking, many can relate to walking a dog. So who's walking who? Who's in control? So I have a technique that's stop, change, and shift, which I call stop, change, and shift. And it's been the most profound and the most simplest for all of the people that I've worked with. And when you stop the dog, so to speak, from pulling you, you have it heel at your side, so you're stopping it. You're now shifting the energy. It's all energy, everything is energy. So when you shift and you look at that dog and you pat her on the head and say, thank you for sharing. Thank you so much for pulling me and do what you're doing, but I'm in control. This is my choice, my decision, and you're going to walk with me. And then all of a sudden, you're now stop changing, shifting the energy to what you want. So it's stop, change, and shift. It could be that easy. And then when you take that first step, the dog is right beside you. You're in control. When you take that first step to change an energy, you're in control because you're choosing to change rather than.
I love that because I love processes that have a formula that it becomes almost like a mantra, right? So that we can remember the steps. And we're going to dive deeper into that, Cameron. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk a little more about the stop, change, shift technique because it's powerful. Just as you just described it, let's go a little deeper. We'll be back in a moment, my friends. I'm with Karen Rudolf. You can learn more at tranquilsolutions.com. And solutions is the word soul instead of solutions spelt the regular way. Tranquilsolutions.com. We'll be back in a moment.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a woman's soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Consistently attract soulmate clients begins showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation and let's magnetize and monetize.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm with transformative life strategist Karen Rudolf of tranquilsolutions.com. And right before the break, Karen, you shared that powerful, and I love it because it's simple, but you can feel the power in it. And it was stop, change, shift technique that you use with your clients. And there was something you said, it's about choice, isn't it?
Always
And
about,
yeah,
yeah,
that's the word I heard on my darkest day when I was probably 32 years ago now. I was deciding if I still wanted to be here. I was a single mom of she's now going to be 40 in June, but she was 6 at the time. And I received a divine download, story for another day. But the number one thing I heard from that moment was, you have the power to choose the story you're telling yourself. And
exactly.
you'd think just having a divine download would be enough of a thing to open your eyes. But it was like, what? I have a choice? I don't have to feel this way. Like, it was such an epiphany.
Yeah,
And so let's talk about that power to choose, because we're either always reacting or responding, right? I was a reactor because I was emotional, had a lot of emotional wounds in childhood stuff. And now it's like, I want to come from a place of responding. That's a choice too, isn't it?
it sure is. And that's part of what I teach as well, because we get to choose how we're going to respond, right? It's our life. And we have inherited, and a lot of people don't like to hear this, but we've inherited a lot of habits from number one, our parents, right? Number two, our grandparents. Number three, our communities, our teachers, our churches, our synagogues, and community, and it just our friends, it just expands out and out and out, and it becomes a choice of whom are you going to listen to. It's a choice, right? You could choose to be your own person and start stepping into it, and not everybody's going to love you, and not everybody's going to like you for it. But when you start stepping into choosing to step into your own power, something changes. It's like this magical little, I don't know about you, Linda, but for me, it was like I didn't even know what personal freedom was, but I knew I was seeking it. And I didn't really start experiencing the power and the majesty. I'm going to use the word majesty. That was just what came down for me, um, because it's divine. It's a divine place. It creates for me the peace and tranquility in my life. And if I can experience that, I know others can experience it. So I support others in finding their personal freedom in these spaces of choice. And, it's challenging. It's not easy because we have habits. And until you stop, change, and choose to shift those habits, it's going to be more the same, and then you'll complain because you're reactive rather than responding. So it becomes like going to the gym. You go to the gym, and the first 3 days it's a little painful, and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. But when you choose to continue doing it and become consistent in it, right, all of a sudden something happens. You start your muscles start relaxing, and you start relaxing, and you catch yourself. You become very aware, more super hyper aware of what's going on in your life. And those are those moments where you stop, go, oh, there it is again. I used to tell myself a story when I was very young that I was stupid, and I believed it. I was in school. I'm going to say 5 or 6 again. And I was very studious, again, the people pleaser. And I'm aging myself here, but they gave us tiles, spelling tiles. And I raised my hand and I was sitting at the very front of the desk because I created legally blindness in my own life. That's another story for another day. But I was sitting in the front and center and I raised my hand and I said to the teacher, I don't have enough tiles to finish my spelling words. And all of a sudden, she starts laughing at the front of the class. The whole class started cracking up. And she comes to my left side, she squats down, puts her right hand on my back, and she turns to the back of blackboard. Now I'm really aging myself, right? And on the back blackboard says April Fool's Day. And I looked at it dumbfounded because I had never had that relatedness of what April Fool's meant. Right, and in that moment, I made it mean that I must be stupid because I'm not getting this joke, and all I wanted to do was curl underneath the desk, and in that moment, I declared I would never open my mouth again and make a fool of myself. Fast forward, I got into middle school, they would ask me a question, whether I knew it, I don't know, I don't know, and the habit of not knowing, right, there's always everything is energy. The habit became cause and effect. So every time I said I didn't know it, I was actually appearing more and more stupid, right? And, I got through high school. I don't know. I don't know. Don't ask me, ask someone else. And it really started tripping me up later in life. And the more, after my divorce, I got into quantum physics, neuroscience, religion, and all of this stuff. And all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, I'm choosing not to believe this anymore because I'm very smart and I might do stupid things now and then. I can laugh at them now because I'm responding to it rather than reacting. So when something quote unquote stupid I do, right, I can stop and say, wait a minute, okay, Karen, really? Okay, that might have been something silly you did, but you're not stupid. So I've detached my identity to that stupid and shifted into a new way and a new energy, a new way of being, which the more you start working and expanding in yourself, right, the more you're able to catch yourself quicker.
It's true, isn't it? It's like rescripting,
Mhm,
you know,
mhm.
'cause but it first comes awareness, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for me it was like um it was that, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm having that thought. After 30 something years of just
Yeah,
it running the show, the moment what I share with my clients, and it sounds like you do too, is the moment it comes into your awareness, you have the power to choose.
exactly.
And the choice is yours. You can continue to follow that negative thought, belief pattern, or choose something different. And for a long time, Karen, back in when I was 30, I'm 62 now, I didn't want, it's like, how dare you tell me the choice is mine? I'd rather be the victim of life.
Exactly. Me too.
And it was so funny because I could feel that pull. And then I got it. And the moment you get it, that it's all a choice,
Yeah,
um, it becomes empowering. But at first I did struggle against it.
sure.
I did struggle with um, owning that I had that power because, like, it sounds like yourself and both of us had that level of disempowerment in our younger years.
Absolutely. Yeah, what you focus on expands and where you resist persists. I resisted it because I felt safe in that space. That's all I knew. I look at it and I like to share with my clients. If you ever hear of a caged animal that's been caged and it's been fed its whole life, and the lights go out a certain time, it goes to bed, and the lights come on a certain time, they can count on when they're going to get fed. And all of a sudden, the owner, let's say, passes, God forbid, whatever, right? And somebody comes along to quote unquote rescue it. Well, the reality is no one's coming to rescue us, right? But all of a sudden, the door opens, and there are animals that have been caged their whole lives that have never felt grass, right? And they put their hand or their paw rather on the grass, and all of a sudden, it's like they pull it back because they're fearful. their brain doesn't know how to process that. So in essence, we are keeping ourselves in that cage. I like to say the hamster wheel. It's the safety of more of the same, more of the same, more of the same. But when we get sick and tired of being sick and tired, we choose choice again, right? We choose to change or not. Not is still a choice.
Yes. Yeah, that's powerful. It is a choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's and the moment I think I was 30, it was 1991 when I had my awakening, or I call it like the cosmic 2x4.
Yeah.
Um, and I told people, listen, here's the part that like if from a epiphany point of view, I don't think I saw it in the moment, Karen. Like I'm sure you've had experiences. You didn't see the lesson or the wisdom in the moment, but now you can. On that day, which I wrote about in the first book we published, I don't know, back in 2010, I was sitting in my car contemplating whether my daughter would be better off without me. I'll just word it that way.
Yeah.
And I was in the car. And then when that moment came, when everything got still and I heard that message that I shared part of it with you,
Yeah.
within 15, 20 minutes of hearing you have a choice, I started writing on a Dunkin' Donuts napkin. For New Englanders, you know what that is.
Yeah.
I want to feel love. I want to be able to trust myself in life. I just kept going because I was suddenly filled with hope, right?
Yeah.
Now, 35 minutes later, Cameron, when I put the ignition back in the car, and again, I didn't understand this moment until years later. I drove away filled with hope and possibility, where 35 minutes before, I was at the depths of despair. Here's the epiphany that I tapped into years later. Nothing on the outside, my circumstances, anything else had changed in that 35 minutes. The shift was on the inside.
Exactly.
And when I got that, I'm like, wait a minute, I can still have hope and possibility despite everything going on. It changed the whole trajectory of my life.
Absolutely.
And so it was, yes, it was the power of choice, but that power of choice empowers us to such a level that it doesn't matter what's going on outside of us.
I couldn't agree with you I agree with you wholeheartedly, I should say, because I had that moment also. As a mother, we pour so much into our children. I have 3 daughters, right? So I remember the first time my former husband drove away. They hadn't seen him for over a year, and all of a sudden he comes out of the blue and he picks them up, and they did not want to go. They were so fearful. And I remember 3 little sets of eyeballs looking at the back of his car as they were driving away. And they were as if to say, and you could just see in their eyes, don't let him take us, don't let him. We're so scared. And these alligator tears were rushing down my face. And like you, it was like maybe they'd be better off without me. And I think angels, this is where I just got my God bumps. Angels come, right? In the moments when we need them the most, there are people in our lives that show up for a reason or season. And I remember I had it all planned out. I'm driving home. I could barely see out of these alligator tears. And I said, I'm going to go in the bathtub. And I had it all planned out. I'll play music, by the way, and maybe have a glass of wine, but this is it. And I remember my girlfriend calling me and saying, "By absolutely not. You're not gonna be by yourself tonight." And she invited me over, and of course, I was so victimized, like, "Oh my god, he's doing this," and all that, we all go through it, right?
Yeah, of course.
And in that moment, I really got, I don't have to be alone, choice.
Yes.
And whether she realized it or not, she was to this day, she's still my angel, and she's put up with a lot. And it's nice to have a sounding board, and somebody to
It
run
is.
us.
And Cameron, we're gonna wait. We're gonna take a quick break. I want to come back to this story. My team will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm so enthralled. I'm like, oh my goodness, I missed the break. So we'll be back in a moment, my friends. I'm with Karen Rudolf. You can learn more at tranquilsolutions.com. Everything is down below in the show notes for the link in her social media links. We'll be back in a moment.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Your truest, deepest desires are calling you. The question is, will you answer the call? Former high-tech Fortune 500 leader Sharon Seberg knows how it feels to wear busyness as a badge of honor and to smother her dreams with the expectations of others. Walking away from her successful yet unfulfilling career, she chose to live a life connected to her intuitive wisdom and divine truth, and now lives a life of fulfillment, peace, and abundance. Today, Sharon is a neurotransformational coach, feminine power facilitator, and the visionary founder of the Soul Alignment Formula. She empathetically fuses cutting-edge neuroscience with intuitive coaching, supporting successful women to unlock their full potential so they can live a life of authenticity and freedom. Are you ready to excavate your deepest desires and bring them to life? Start by visiting SharonSeberg.com.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
To get inside
each other's mind,
walk a mile in my shoes.
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. Thanks for being here. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me is Karen Rudolf. So Karen, in that moment, right, I believe earth angels come into our lives too. But in that moment, or in the various moments we've both had and all our listeners have had, when you look back now, right, you can see that was a pivotal healing moment for you, even though it was painful. It was you allowing yourself to receive from that friend.
Yeah.
Right? I think that was a big thing for me, allowing ourselves to receive the same support we would give another.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
back in the day, there was no way I could really give. I thought I would. I had, was inspired to share this as well. Yeah. Being open and receptive, because we don't have to do life alone. We're not meant to do life alone. And, I was very blessed in that moment that my girlfriend showed up, and I've since showed up for her on many occasions. She still shows up for me to this day. But I remember once I got over that hump, so to speak, and realized, again, I didn't know what to get a choice. I hadn't even really, things were coming to me quick and fast at the time. Divorce was like, in and of itself, it was just so, all these stressors, like we hold on to all these stressors, and I didn't have the tools to manage the stressors, right? Which causes the stress, which creates the dis-ease. And I remember my girlfriend saying to me at the time, Karen, it was right around when Hurricane Katrina went through Louisiana, and people were displaced. And I was living in Orlando at the time, and she said to me, would you like the experience for you and your children? And I was always about giving my girls experiences because I wanted them to be well-rounded. I was that kind of mom,
Yeah.
So she asked me to go to the church and support them. Well, I have asthma, and they wanted me to paint the floor. And I looked at them, and it was like, I will contribute any way I can. However, don't believe I'm going to be painting the floor. And of course, it wasn't coming from the best heart space. It was probably in that space and time a very selfish move on my part. But again, it was a learning process. So I give myself grace looking back on it. And we grow from every experience. And I remember they assigned me to a room with a financial planner, and they said, we just need you to hold the space in the room. And it was a small little rectangular room. And literally the table took up the majority of the room. The speaker was at the front of the room, and you literally had to like squeeze between the wall and the chairs to get to the spaces in the back. Well, of course, I sat on the left, squeezed into my little seat there. And as the speaker started talking, he was giving more of a sermon than he was talking about finances. But he said to me, and I'll never forget the experience, another angel. He came by and he says, "How many of you are givers, and how many of you love to like give and give and give?" And every hand in the room went up, and it's like, "Yeah," we're all excited and waving our hands up there. And he literally jumped across the room and flung himself inches from my face. And I don't know about you, but when there's a finger in your nose and your face, it's uncomfortable. And knowing there's a wall behind you, you don't have much room to back up. And he says, "You're robbing people of their joy." And I went, "Ooh." And we all got silent. And he says, "You're robbing people of the joy. You are not allowing them to give because you don't know how to receive." And I went, "Oof." He says, "Thank
Yeah.
you." It's a complete sentence. And I still get the chills. I will never forget that, man. Never forget that. That was one of the biggest lessons in gratitude. It was one of the biggest lessons in abundance. It was one of the biggest lessons in choice, that part of my becoming. So, I mean, things happen for us, right? We attract them in when we're ready to attract them in. It's all energy, right? So as we grow and expand, things will start opening up, and you might be like, "Ooh, I don't want to be here." But then when you really get present to what's the silver lining in this, I learned a huge lesson that day.
I gotta tell you, it's like I, the fact that he chose you to do the like right in your face, it was like your divine support team, whatever you may call it, was like, she needs this message, make sure she gets it. And I laugh at that because how many times, and this is for all the listeners too, how many times have you heard the same message multiple times and you go, ooh, but then you keep going on your path, doing the same thing you've always done. Well, the divine, your source, the universe, whatever word is your source of love, is like, okay, this is how I used to tell the story when I did a lot of teaching when I had a retail store back in the 90s. I used to also hold women's circles there. My own experience was the divine whispers to us, right? Could be numbers, signs, whatever your way of receiving information. And I would like, you know how you flip your hand when there's a bug on you?
Yep.
I'd be like, not now, not now. I'm too busy micromanaging the divine.
Yeah.
And then I would get like the little smack on the head, which is a life experience where, hey, you're going to start paying attention. But of course, Linda thought, I'm the micromanager of the divine. I've got this. I was such a control freak, which was all based on trauma, of course. And then you get the hit with the cosmic 2x4. And for some reason, for 35 years of my life, I always waited for the damn cosmic 2x4. Tell me I wasn't a slow learner. And finally, I realized, which is a lot of what this conversation is about, is start listening, start paying attention, start receiving. The divine is always trying to support us. It's up to us to choose to listen. And so now I receive less and less cosmic 2x4s.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean life is perfect. As you know, Karen, I just went through multiple surprise surgeries and I'm still here. They didn't expect me to be after the first one. Could you call that a cosmic 2x4? Yes, but through the whole thing, I felt divinely supported. Miracles happened.
Yeah.
So isn't it funny? Was you ever a micromanager of the divine? My clients love that when I use that phrase. It's like the ultimate control freak that really feels like if she can't control everything, then she doesn't feel safe, empowered, etc. Can you relate?
Not 100% to that, because being a people pleaser, I was very subservient, and sadly, I kept giving my power away to everybody because I wanted to
Okay.
be and loved and liked and all of that other stuff. And I mean, I too, at the beginning of last January, at the Cosmic 2x4, I was down in Costa Rica riding a horse. I love horses, and I'm not foreign to them. And I went flying off course, went 6 feet up in the air, and broke my hip and had surgery in a country that I don't speak the language. So I had a choice, right, in that moment, because of the training, because of the experiences I had, to not make it mean anything other than focus on what's in front of me. And I was basically told I wasn't going to be walking anytime soon. I had fractured my femur. I had fractured, my femur came off. So I now have a titanium rod in my leg. I dislocated my back and I had a fractured my pelvis. I could not move my toes. I couldn't move my legs. I was in a diaper. It was humiliating. And I was like, Karen, let it go. Let it
Yes.
surrender. So the word surrender came up for me. And that experience, when I look for the silver lining in that, it was all about learning the lesson of surrender. Be in the moment, because I was so busy micromanaging life, and I got to do this, and I got business, and I got the kids, and da 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 da, and going 50 million. So this has definitely slowed me down. It's definitely taught me to take better care of myself and my well-being, and there, yeah, I refuse to believe, and this is part of where we were going with the stress management aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
I could have chosen to react to it, but I chose to respond. And I said, okay, Karen, you've been trained in communication, you've been trained in team management and leadership. How I'm going to focus on healing, and my body is healing, because my diagnosis doesn't have to be their prognosis, right? So I just kept
Exactly.
telling myself over and over again, my body's healing, healing every day in every way on a cellular level. And I envisioned myself walking, and I used affirmations and every bit that I had ever learned before I used for healing. Today I am walking. I probably started walking and gave up my cane probably 6 months afterwards, which was against all odds. And I just kept telling myself, I am healing. I am, my body's healing, and I'm going to not walk with a hobble. And when I get tired, I hobble a little because my legs are still a little weak. That it's the choices we choose to tell
Yeah.
ourselves. It's the difference between ease and dis-ease. Every thought you think is attached to a cell. Your body's 68% water, if not more. If you're familiar with Dr. Emoto's work, and I talk about this in Healthopedia, Words as Medicine was from that book, is Dr. Emoto is a Japanese scientist who talked about the healing. He didn't talk about the healing. He talked about prayer and water. And he had a bottle of water that was, he put love on it, and he put another bottle of water that had hate on it, or war on it. And when he looked at them under a microscope, love had these beautiful fractals. They look like beautiful snowflakes. When you look under hate or war under a microscope, it looks like cancer cells.
And
So
that was a powerful study. I remember all the images when that first came out. And Cameron, we're going to take a break because we're coming back for our last segment. We went a little over. We'll be right back, my friends. I am with Karen Rudolf of tranquilsolutions.com, and we'll be back for the last segment in a moment.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Are you ready to invite more gentleness and less judgment into your life? Self-worth coach Nancy Reed, longtime teacher and facilitator of A Course in Miracles, supports successful, empathic, and mission-driven women to embrace their perfectly imperfect self with curiosity and gentleness. She holds loving space and compassionately guides women to learn to trust the wisdom of their soul and live from their dreams, not their perceived limitations, and to quiet the voice of their inner perfectionist so they can hear their inner voice. Nancy is a popular media guest and author of the award-winning book, Happily Ever Now, Not After Everything Else is Perfect, a gentle guide for overcoming the paralysis of perfectionism by embracing our innate guidance. For supportive resources, inspiring content, and to join her Sparkle Circle Facebook community, visit nancyreed.com.
To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Free your mind with Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. So Karen, speaking about that, so it's the power of the mind that heals.
Absolutely.
Right? It's the thoughts that we feed it. And that's how I got through. That's how my honey got through a double brain diagnosis, a pituitary tumor. 4 days later, they found a double aneurysm above the tumor, completely unrelated. But we chose to look at them both as blessings because the blessing, similar to you choosing to look at your healing from the place of empowerment instead of victimization, that's what led to your rapid healing. That's what led to my rapid healing and his. We chose to find the blessings in every moment. The blessings was, oh, thank you for finding the aneurysm 4 days later, because if they had operated on the tumor, not knowing the aneurysm was right above it and unrelated, he would have bled out on the table. Blessing, right? We could have looked going, why did we get 2 diagnoses? So everything you just shared about how you handled your Costa Rican cosmic 2x4 is how I live my life too. How we are trying to encourage others to live that way, right? Talking to the cells in your body is so important. They're always listening.
They are always listening. And the stories you tell yourself, your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and fiction.
No.
Tell yourself a story like I did, I'm stupid. It's going to look for evidence to prove to myself that I'm stupid until I choose to shift, right? Stop, change, and shift. And then when I stopped choosing that story, I got to recreate it and say, you know what? I'm pretty darn intelligent and I might do silly things now and then, and they might appear stupid, but I can laugh at myself and create my own ease within my body, because your body is always holding on to these emotions until you choose to release it or emote it. What is emotion is energy in motion. Until you get it out of your body, it's stuck emotions, and that's what causes the dis-ease. Every part of your body is telling a different story.
It's so true. And years ago, I didn't get that. I would focus, and I think, you got the mass media, that's a story for another day, but I would be like, oh my God, this is like 30 years ago. I have a headache. I would focus on the headache. So what's going to happen?
Yep.
Headache's going to get worse.
Exactly.
Instead of saying, what message do you have for me today?
Yeah.
Because every symptom is a message from our body telling us where we're out of alignment with our thoughts, energies, beliefs, diet, self-care. In the last few minutes, we have about 7 minutes to go. What is something you really want people to know about the power of choice? More than what we've already discussed, because maybe it's a strategy, a tip, or an additional piece of wisdom.
Listen, your body's always talking. It's always talking. If you don't listen, it's going to knock louder. And if you don't listen, it knocks louder. And if you don't listen, it's going to be that cosmic 2x4 into your head. And it's when it speaks really loud, often if it speaks too loud and you're not listening, that's when real chronic stuff happens. Well, it's not that it can't be shifted back, it's more challenging to shift back. One of the things that took me globally was when the quote, it was actually a quote by Wayne Dyer, one of my super mentors. And what Wayne Dyer said was, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. My brain heard it, right? However we get it, right? My
Yeah.
brain heard it. When you change the way you look at things, the way you look at things change. That quote took me, because I do creative problem solving. I was part of the Creative Problem Solving Institute. That took me to South Africa, making a difference in the educational system down there. Had I not heard that quote and started looking at things differently, and looking towards all my experiences and really listening, because communication comes in the listening. It doesn't come in the speaking. It's not thinking about your next words out of your mouth. It's really being a listener to hear what's missing and wanted. And that goes for your own life. Listen, and you'll hear greatness.
Yeah. I think it's a lost art, you know. I think um, the younger generation, they're not learning that listening skill, you know. But we know what's possible for everyone, right? And we know that by being doing our work in the world, you, my other guests, myself, that's our mission,
It is.
is to help elevate the vibration of the world, so that this younger generation can find their way back to their center, instead of they're so outwardly focused right now because they've had technology in their lives for so long. So one of the other things, and we have a few more moments, on your website, you talk about being a catalyst for change.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Being a catalyst for change is, I said that when I found my mom on the floor. Well, actually, when my horse got struck by lightning, the vet said to me, Karen, you're going through a divorce. You have 3 little children. Put them down. It's going to cost you thousands of dollars. And I got still and I listened. And I opened my eyes, they flung open, and he was inches from my face. And I said, nope, he's going to survive, and he and I are going to be a catalyst for change. And he looked at me, I looked at him, I was like, I don't know where that came from, but I guess that's something I'm going to become. And it's part of the journey, is the becomingness, and being a catalyst for change is really making it's the ripple effect, for lack of better. And that was my first book, 5 Ways to Create a Ripple, which is a simple little book with 5 little steps on how to create your own ripple. When you throw a rock in the if you throw a rock in the water and it goes straight down, you're going to have ripples. If you skip the rock, you're going to have many ripples. It's like the butterfly wings. My signature is the butterfly. You see butterflies all over around me. That's for transformation, right? So the butterfly effect, when a butterfly flaps its wings, it affects things globally around the world. I'm out to make a difference.
So beautiful. I love that. And I love that, you know, the moment that it was birthed through you. And that was a divine message, as you know, to remind you of why you was here. And I love that the vet honored your choice too.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
get a lot, but he did.
yeah, and I'm just so grateful that our paths have crossed, and I'm excited to share your message with my audience. Such a powerful one, and I want to invite everyone again to visit Karen at tranquilsolutions.com. Everything's in the show notes. You can find some other links down there, including her social media. And again, solutions is spelt with the word soul and then the rest of the word. So, Karen, thank you for doing the work you're doing in the world and for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, and to your listening audience. You can't go wrong. Come back and keep listening to Linda Joy. She's got a wealth of information here, and I'm just so grateful to be a part of it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey, that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.